Class in Python. What is a class? Class is basically a template. It is a blueprint that you can use to create similar objects without writing code over and over again for the same object or for the objects that have the same pattern or have some common properties, attributes, and methods. These are the advantages of class. The first one is code reuse. So you do not repeat yourself, you do not code over and over again the same thing. It is a lot of work, it takes time, and it makes your application very heavy. With class, your code has much better overview and you have a much better control and overview of your code and your application. Class makes it easy to maintain your code, to modify and extend it. Because with class you don't repeat yourself, you have clean structure, so it also increases the performance of your application. Class is much more realistic to the real world than functions. So we have functional programming and object-oriented programming. Functional programming is that you create functions and you pass data to your function. Functions don't have attributes and properties, but classes have attributes, properties, and methods. Almost everything in the real world is object. It has attributes, properties, and it has some functionalities. The biggest powerful softwares in big technology companies, in big production companies, in factories, are created using object-oriented programming. The applications and software that we use daily with our smartphone are created using class and objects. The applications and softwares that we use every day allow us to change things in those applications and softwares. To modify, you have settings. You go to the settings, you turn on off options, and that is with the help of object-oriented programming and with the help of classes and objects. With object-oriented programming, you can divide your application in different categories, in different modules. And for each module, you write some codes and you reuse your code or your module. Your modules have very clean structure, better overview, it's very easy to maintain, extend, and modify, and it has very good performance. For doing the same thing, for getting the same result, if you can write less code, it is much better, and you should do that. To create a class, you use the class keyword, class, and then you give a name. For the naming for your class, you should use a snake case or Pascal case. You have attributes, for example, you have the model of your car. Let us say nothing for now, and then you say year, also none. These are properties or attributes, and then brand, for now nothing, price, and then you have something called constructor. That is a function. So you start with div underscore underscore init underscore parenthesis, and you pass here one parameter for the object itself. So you call it self or whatever you want. In Python documentation, they call it self. So here you pass the model, year, brand, price, and you set values for these attributes or properties. So you call self dot model is model, and then you follow the same thing for all of it. Self.year, self.brand, self.price. Let us create an object of this, or create an instance of this class. Call it BMW underscore and say car model. And as you see, this asks you to pass these values. And then you have access to all the properties or attributes. Let us print the price. BMW dot price, and the price of my car is 35,000.99. You can also change the attributes or properties like BMW dot price, a new price, for example 47,070, and now you get the new price. When you ask it, like using the dot, you get it. And if you use the assignment operator on this, you set a new value, you change its value. Inside your class you can have other methods or functions. For example, here we say get car details. So in every method in your class you have to pass a parameter. In this case we call it self, but you don't have to call it self. It is not mandatory to call it self. From your method you can return anything. So we return this string template with some data. Get cars details, so it is a method, it is a function. You have to use parentheses to call it. So this is the result. The model is BMW blah blah blah. The year is 2021. The brand is this, and this is this. So this is for BMW. We can create another one. Let's say Volvo is cheaper than BMW. I get here all the information for the BMW and all the details for Volvo. You see that we are reusing the same model or the same class twice for two completely different things. Here the BMW this variable and Volvo this variable. These are real entities, real objects with properties and attributes. I hope now you see the difference between class and object. You can also delete properties or attributes or methods from your object. For example, like this, you can use del volvo dot price, and then it removes the price attributes or properties. And here we get none for that attribute, which means that that attribute does not exist anymore. You can completely delete the object and you get here error because the Volvo is not defined or does not exist. You can set a new value to the properties of your object. For example, we say BMW dot year and we assign a new value 2023, and as you see the year for BMW is changed. Let us create another class and call it computer. In case you don't want to write anything in your class temporarily, you can use the keyword pass to avoid error. Let us talk about inheritance. What is inheritance? Inheritance is about taking properties and methods, functionalities, attributes of another class and use it in a new class. When you see that one class has the properties, attributes and methods that can be used in another class, you should inherit those properties, attributes and methods instead of creating one. So let me show you with examples. Create here a class person and create here a constructor. We also create here a method that returns the person's basic information. Diff basic details self. It returns a list of details. So self dot first name. Let us call this self one later. A dot first name, A dot that, A dot that. Let us create another class. Call it student. A student has also first name, last name, birth date, country and language. So we need to inherit those properties from the person. To inherit, you use parentheses after the name of your class, and then you pass here the class that you want to inherit from. In inheritance, you have a class that is called parent class and a class that is called child class. So in this case, the person is the parent class and a student is the child class. Now this class, student, has all the methods and properties of the person. Let us say that the student has some study field. Study field. Let us create two objects of these two classes. Call one person 1. Call the person, and we need to pass this information. The first name, for example, let us print the person 1 dot basic details. So it is a function, we need to call it. And now for the student 1 student, and as you see now it also asks us to enter the first name, last name, birth date, country and language. So the first name of the student is, for example, so instead of writing all this stuff again, we inherited to have all of this inside the student class. Let us copy this and then bring it down here and say the person is Lisa Paula, this date USA English, the student is Salman Khan, February 1990, India Hindi. But for the student we also provided another property, the study field computer science. So the person and the student also says the student studies computer science. As you see here, we have a specific property for only student. We don't provide value for this property when we create our object. So that is the beauty of constructor, that when you create a new object or instantiate a new object from your class, you pass values through your constructor. But in a student, we have init function, but in that init function, we do not provide the study field. So how can you do that? When you inherit, you can overwrite the constructor. This is how you do it. Init, here you pass all this, the detail that you need to pass to the parent. And now here we also add a study field. We don't need to write this again. We just use the person dot init, and we pass this properties to the parent, and here we say self dot study field. Now instead of providing value for study field outside the constructor, we can provide this through the constructor and we will have access to that. Now it says the study field here also. So study field, the person, the student, and the study field is computer science. This is one way that you can override the init or the constructor of your parent class. You have also another way, that is through the super keyword. Let us change it to super. You don't need to pass the self for the super, only the part that is necessary for the parent, and it works the same. You see here the person is the student studies. This is how you can inherit and overwrite the constructor of the parent class. You can also add another methods in your child class. Div, for example, welcome, that you welcome the student, call it a instead of self. One parameter is mandatory and it represents the object itself, and the welcome says so now if you say student one dot welcome, it should execute the code inside this method. So let us run, and it says hello Salman, this is the first name, welcome to the class. Probably you thought that class is something very difficult and fancy. Class made it much easier to write a program, to create powerful softwares.